don't know exactly the physical layout of the Taiwan undersea internet cables, and they probably connect to more than one place. But yeah, I can definitely see a scenario where cutting them off from the internet would be terrifying. And this is something that we had brought up with Commander GR, which is that if China targets U.S. comms, whether it's the comms that the Navy is using internally or other types of U.S. satellite communications, whether GPS or something, I wouldn't even know how to drive to the grocery store, right? Like what backups do we have, whether it's for Taiwan or internally, to deal with losing communications in literally the most connected era in known human history?
Good question, Matt. So we've seen a little bit how this can happen accidentally with the volcano and earthquake and tsunami that happened in Tonga, and Tonga got completely cut off. And so there was a scramble, and this is actually the second time Tonga's cable was cut. A ship, it seems like, dragged an anchor and cut it also a couple of years ago. And redundancies weren't put in place then. And people were scrambling about how to reestablish connections. And Elon Musk did end up sending some Starlink terminals. But as he said about the Starlink terminals in Ukraine, be very careful using them because they can be located and targeted. So the question is there a redundant communication system? And it's something I've looked at a little bit in the context of the Pacific Islands, because that is the strategic front line between Asia and the Americas. And there's a lot of ocean and not a lot of land points. And if the satellites are blinded and the cables are cut, being able to communicate across that vast area, it's like 1/6 of the planet, is going to be very important. And one of the things that came up during the Tonga issue was looking back at some of these older technologies like ham radios and whether that could be an effective redundancy system. And somebody I spoke with in the UK also said that they had systems that were designed to operate in the case of a nuclear explosion, which would have the effect of a massive electromagnetic pulse, which would knock out a lot of other communications. So we have these older systems that may be able to withstand that kind of disruption. And I would be very surprised if this hasn't been gamed out by Beijing. And when you look at some of the embassies that China has in the Pacific Islands, they have, until they get covered up, but sometimes they're visible, very complex communications arrays. And they have communication ships, a class of ships, which are surveillance ships, which they have floating around the region, which may have the capability to relay signals. I'm not sure. So I think that they have certainly factored into their calculations that satellites may become inoperable and are going to other systems as redundancies. And we don't even seem to have done it in the case of humanitarian assistance and disaster response. I mean, after the Tonga situation, there should be an evaluation for all of the Pacific Islands of perhaps ham radios or some sort of redundant system that can be maintained for disaster response, at least, but also in case of these cataclysmic kinetic events. And if anybody wants to put in the comments some of these older systems that we can look up and figure out whether they would work, I'd be very grateful, because I know the bad guys are looking at it, and I think we should be talking about it a little bit more openly as well.
Wow, that's.
I suddenly have an urge to buy a shortwave radio.
I was also thinking that exactly.
It reminds me actually a lot of the newer Battlestar Galactica. Never mind.
Okay,
I won't go to that
I only
now.
watched one season of it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But hey, on the bright,
carrier pigeons, just in case, and then if things go bad, you can always eat them.
I don't think there
point.
are carrier pigeons left that are like trained, right? Aren't
yeah, no, they
kind
still exist. Like it's like a hobby for some people.
Yeah.
And they'll become like the linchpin of national security if this goes down. But on the bright side, if China cuts off the internet, at least that racist Joe Rogan won't have a platform to spread medical misinformation.
we'll have to adopt the clacking system or whatever it's called from Terry Pratchett.
I approve.
Yeah.
I support
Yeah.
that one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that where they hold up the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's you see like on the different towers. That's right. Yeah.
You just have to watch out for vampires.
That's true. Yeah.
Wow, I have no idea this reference. Well. Anyways, I mean, I think this has been, maybe one of our most important and darkest podcasts.
Yeah, but also there are so many topics that we wanted to talk with you about that we have not covered. Like we had discussed over email talking about the, geostrategic implications of the Pacific Islands. And we've touched on that for like 5 minutes and there's at least an hour to go into. But I think we're going to have to actually save that for a future podcast.
This was very good, like big picture thing. I mean, like right from the beginning, like when like the India thing went in a totally different direction than I was expecting. It's like, oh, this is good. This is going to be big.
So while I was talking about the India stuff, what came to your mind about how to handle this situation?
Gosh, I don't know if we ever offer solutions.
Yeah, I mean,
on
our
the show.
solution is to interview really, really smart people.
Sorry to disappoint. Yeah,
you never disappoint, Cleo.
Yeah, it's usually because I can bring gifts, like maple syrup, right? Like
the theme through all of it was the main issue is, in a lot of ways, the Chinese Communist Party, and like if that is the focus globally, that will solve a lot of problems.
Well, I think that like one big thing is to not like get tricked again by their whole like we can help mediate between Russia and Ukraine.
Fool me twice, can't get fooled again.
But I mean, there's also the question of whether Russia would be willing to let China mediate for them, because it would put them in a
subservient
position.
China.
But like, don't fall for it again. But also, I think there's like the communication. There could be better, like a communication issue that we could solve with the India thing, right? Like,
I think so.
Does the Biden administration understand what's happening? Are they talking, like, what is going on there in terms of our conversations with India? It seems like the Biden administration in Europe are doing a good job of connecting with each other. But if we're just talking to India in a way where we're not really acknowledging their concerns or their viewpoint, and we're just trying to kind of get them to do what we want them to do.
Well, that's an interesting point because one of the things the Trump administration was very good at was reaching out to allies, not really European allies, but India, a lot of the places in the Pacific that we didn't really get a chance to go into. But, he was criticized as being, not working with allies. Biden promised to work with allies, and he's doing that largely with Europe, but I don't know how much has been really going on with all the other countries, like India.
Yeah, and so just to follow up on this don't get fooled again thing, the other component of the don't get fooled again thing is, the one is, can China mediate? The other is, everybody has to look at Russia as the threat now and not China, right? And this is very similar to what happened around 9/11. There was starting to be discussion about China at that time. And then there's that horrific attack on the U.S. and the entire focus pivoted. And the U.S. can, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can be very concerned about terrorism and very concerned about China, and we can be very concerned about Russia and very concerned about China. So that's another component of this don't get fooled again thing is they have no credibility as a mediator, obviously. They're part of the bankrolling of the whole thing. But also the Chinese Communist Party is creating systemic, if you want to go that way, problems that are destroying us as a society, as an economy, as a legitimate political entity in the world. Unless that is addressed, everything else needs to be addressed also. But unless that is addressed, that problem is still going to be there.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of the 9/11 thing, part of the whole thing was we wanted to get China on our side for the war on terror, right?
And they did pretend to join us so then they could use terrorism to go after their own, Muslim population.
But they also continued to back Pakistan in using terrorism against India.
So I think the solution here is to look at this. It's kind of like the original Mario Brothers, right? It's like, you're playing, you're jumping over these bad guys and avoiding bullets, and you get to the, level 1-4, and it's like the castle, and you beat the bad guy, and then you realize, oh no, the princess is in another castle. and you go through, and it's like level 2. Look, princess is in another castle. Oh man, what you should do is just warp and then warp again till you get to the final world and you realize that the final big bad is the Chinese Communist Party. So just go right to the end, target the big bad, destroy Bowser and rescue the princess.
Who's the princess in this scenario?
Freedom.
World peace.
Freedom.
Yeah. No, freedom. Freedom is the right one.
Lady Liberty.
Lady Liberty. There we go.
Okay.
It would have been so smooth if I had come up with that.
No. This is totally on brand. To get almost to the end and then fumble. That's how we end all our podcasts. We're doing pretty well, and then we might collapse.
Batting 100 at batting 0.
I now have this
it's 1,000. You bat 1,000.
Whatever. Yeah. It's a slam dunk.
I now have this mental image though of Xi and Putin meeting February 4th right before the Olympics, and Putin confiding in his best friend Xi Jinping that he really wants to, invade Ukraine, and then Xi Jinping kind of egging him on. Oh, it's a great idea for you to invade Ukraine. Yeah, you got this,
I was imagining the two of them in Bowser's castle.
So guys, Cleo is still here.
I'll just let myself out. It's okay.
Thank you for joining us, Cleo. That was well, I mean, it's the kind of information that we like to have on the show that is not information most people are getting from the major corporate media.
I thought you were going to end with not information. And I was like, yeah, sorry. I did my best. Yeah.
No, that was great information. It was not information I see.
Yes. I see. Yes.
You did great, Cleo.
And we'll have to have you on again to cover all the things that we didn't actually get around to.
Yeah, China's about to expand its sphere of influence almost to the coast of Hawaii. So we should probably talk about that at some point.
Well, do we have another hour?
Next time on China Unscripted, the Chinese Communist Party is trying to expand its influence all the way to the American border.
Build that wall.
Well, but of course, with Guam, Matt, they're already there.
Oh man! Ooh. All right, we got to save this for another podcast. But
we'll save that.
There's going to be a lot, so we'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, thanks again, Cleo.
Goodbye.
Well, I think Cleo had a lot of really good information on this podcast.
That's why we keep having her on again and again.
That's right. I mean, I think it's very important for the people watching this to really try and share this with people because as we kind of talked about, there are huge global security issues happening, and a lot of people just aren't really aware of what's at stake.
But did you hear that the Kardashians are back together? They're a thing again?
What about Pete Davidson?
Yeah.
Celebrities unexposed.
Yeah, that's what needs to happen. Well, if I could remember that saying about,
good times make weak men.
And then there's what happens after that?
Then doom.
But then strong men make good times. So we're almost there.
No, hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Yeah. Good times make weak men, and then doom.
That's it.
I think then weak men make bad.
Yeah. Well, the point is we're almost to the hard times, and then someone can save us and make us
almost to the hard times.
Oh, I mean, I think the Cleo was painting a picture of much harder times.
That's true.
I mean, gas is already above $7 a gallon.
Actually, oil fell below $100 again a barrel.
But gas prices are still high. So
And
anyway,
ain't that a gas? So thank you for joining us on this episode of China Unscripted. This I think was a very important one. I learned a lot.